Hello everybody, well it is tag time again. I've been approached by a number of people about two tags that are currently doing the rounds. The first one is fairly straightforward, it's answering 11 questions about yourself. And the second one is a bit more in-depth, and it is called Portrait of an Atheist, in which we are asked to discuss 5 topics. In all fairness, looking at the Portrait of an Atheist, I would have actually preferred it if the topics under discussion weren't all so serious. I would have liked to discuss something a little bit more frivolous, something a bit more fun to discuss. But still, those are the topics that are on the table, so that's what I'll discuss. I'll start, however, by answering the 11 questions because they're the most straightforward and they can serve as an introduction, just some facts about me, and then we'll get into my position on certain things. Okay, the first one. What is your name? My name is Pino, as you all will know. It is not a secret. My last name also isn't a secret, even though I will not be blurting it out here. If you really want to know, a little bit of investigation of my channel and a little bit of Googling will very quickly resolve that question for you. Do I have any tattoos? No. I have nothing against tattoos whatsoever, but it just never tickled my fancy. I never felt the urge, never felt intrigued by them or anything like that, so I just never did. I never got one. Any problems with knowing where I live? No, my memory is pretty good and I have no problem with it. Okay, I'm joking. No, I have no problem. I have no problem with people knowing where I live, no. I wouldn't necessarily blurt out my exact address here, but that I live in Greystones, in County Wicklow, in the Republic of Ireland, is not a secret. So, there you have it. I'm not too readily intimidated anyway. Do you say things that people don't understand? To be perfectly honest with you, half the time I don't understand what I say myself, so I wouldn't blame anybody for not understanding what I'm saying. Do you dislike your hair? Not at all, I'm quite happy with my hair. Funny that, because there's so many people who are unhappy with their hair. People who are going bald and to whom that would be a huge problem. I couldn't care less if I was going bald. People who go grey prematurely and to whom that is a huge problem. And here I am, very close to my mid-40s, and I've never had to dye my hair. I couldn't care less, and here I am, burdened with this gorgeous hair. What can you do? Do regular people know that you YouTube? What are regular people? To me, anybody is a regular person anyway. And yes, non-YouTubers, if that's what you mean by regular people, yes, non-YouTubers do know that I YouTube. People in my family know that I YouTube, my friends know that I YouTube, so it's not a secret. How many hours do you spend on YouTube? The odd, about an hour a day, I would say, on average. But I do sometimes get sucked in to something or other, and then I spend too much time on YouTube. I try not to, but you can't always avoid it. Do people like that you're on YouTube? Well, most of the time they're okay with it, they don't mind, but if I get sucked in like that and I do spend that bit of too much time on YouTube, then sometimes people can get a little bit resentful, and that is quite understandable, and it's my fault. There you go. Are you scared something might come up? Like what? A natural disaster? I'm not really scared that anything might come up as such. I don't think I'm putting videos out there that put me in anybody's firing line. If I do, so be it, but I don't think so. there are a lot more controversial voices on this channel, on this site, that might have valid reasons to be worried. I don't. I certainly have no problem worrying about natural disaster or impending doom or anything like that. No. Like what? Like hell in 1957? In joke for those who haven't followed my videos on that. Nah. One day we all have to face something. One day we all have to face something that we and or our bodies cannot handle. And will die. It's going to happen to all of us. Until then, enjoy life. Make the most of it. Make the best of it. That's all you can do. Sitting there worrying about it is not going to achieve anything, and it's only going to make you miserable. So don't do it. Do you carry your camera everywhere you go? No. I have had occasion to regret that, when there was something that I would have loved to just snap and make a feature out of, but most of the time I don't really see the need to take my camera everywhere I go. If I have an idea for a video, for example, it can wait until I get home, and then I'll deal with it. Why do I YouTube? Well, initially I started YouTubing because I had a couple of ideas about the subject of death and about religion and so on, and I came across videos by somebody I knew and some other people about similar subjects, and I thought, well, maybe I have something to contribute to this. And I decided to make a few videos myself, and I got sucked in. And here I am, several hundred videos later, and I'm still going. So, hey, I like it. I'm enjoying it. Why not? As the great mountaineer said about Mount Everest, when they asked him why he's climbing it, because it's there. Now, let's start discussing these really serious 5 topics. Now, the first topic on the discussion is abortion. And I would love to be able to just take the simplistic approach. I almost envy religious people who can just look at this in black and white terms, declare a fetus to be a human being, ex cathedra, just like because God says so, and then just say no. Reality, of course, is very different. I am well aware that there are women out there, some women, who use abortion as an alternative to contraception because they couldn't be bothered to use a condom. It happens. And I find that quite disturbing to think about. But on the other hand, you have women who get raped, you have women who are suffering severe mental distress because they're pregnant, women who cannot cope. And the thing is, from a scientific perspective, there is no black and white here. Yes, when you look at the extremes, there is. You got a fertilized egg, which is a single cell with a lot of potential, but nothing else. You've got a newborn baby, which is undeniably a human being. But in between, I'm afraid, there is no simple moment in time at which you can say, this is now a human being. So what do you do in that case? Legislation doesn't allow for grey areas. So you set an arbitrary point. 20 weeks, 24 weeks, no matter what you choose, there can always be brought objections against this, before which you will allow abortion and after which you don't. I would love to be able, because I do object to this willy-nilly frivolous use of abortion. I would love to be able to say to women, sorry, you should have thought before you just jumped into bed with the next guy. You should have thought, and now you have to take responsibility. But you know what? We do not know what goes on inside a woman's head. No matter how she presents herself, no matter what she says, no matter how she acts. A woman who acts like she's full of bravado and who acts like she doesn't care might internally be churning with the emotional burden of having to decide what to do, and she's just putting on a brave face. Somebody presenting herself like she's in turmoil, like she's completely unable to cope, completely stressed, might underneath it all just be acting and just be waiting for the moment where she can just get rid of the thing. Right? There's no way we can know. So even though I can think of certain objections to abortion under certain circumstances, even though I can think of reasons why I would certainly support abortion under other circumstances, in the end, we as outsiders can never determine with certainty what those circumstances are. We can never determine with certainty whether a woman would be deserving of an abortion or not. It is not our decision to make. And therefore the only sensible approach, the only reasonable approach when it comes to legislation around abortion is to set an arbitrary cutoff point where you say, after this, sorry, you cannot have an abortion, and before that point the only person who will be entrusted with the decision will be the woman herself. It is for her to decide in accordance with her own conscience, and it is nobody else's business. That's my position on that. The next topic under discussion is capital punishment, and my position on that is very straightforward. Capital punishment is out of the question as far as I'm concerned. Nobody, and that means absolutely nobody, has the right to plan, plot and execute the taking of another person's life. And that includes governments and states, and nobody can be employed to perform such a deed. It's barbaric, inhumane and unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. Now don't get me wrong, I am not a bleeding heart liberal under any circumstances when it comes to this topic. I would not shed a single tear when Saddam Hussein was hanged. The bastard deserved it. He deserved to die. But the fact that he deserved to die, that he had forfeited his right to life, does not mean that anybody has the right to kill him. That is the reason why I have to oppose capital punishment. Capital punishment is about people's right to take another person's life, and that right can never be extended under any circumstances. And that's why I have to oppose capital punishment like this. I don't by any means have any objection to dealing with an immediate danger, an immediate situation, in a decisive and, if necessary, lethal manner. Doesn't make it right. If you are, say you find yourself in the position of being a sniper on a roof, and you've got a hostage taker in your sight, and the hostage taker has got 5 children around him, he pulls the gun, shoots the first kid, dead. takes the gun, points it at the next kid, and he's in the sight of your gun. What do? Of course you're going to pull the trigger. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean that you at that point in time had the right to take that person's life, but it was something that sadly was necessary in the moment. But capital punishment means organizing the taking of a person's life when they're locked up in jail, already out of harm's way, no more threat to society, and you then meticulously plan and execute the taking of their life. I cannot see any justification for that. The other reason why I think this is because the penal system, in my opinion, has one and only one goal, and that is to rehabilitate anybody that falls into its care. And again, do not mistake me for a bleeding heart liberal with that, because in this case I think our penal system is severely wanting, especially when it comes to crimes of a really serious nature. When somebody commits a really serious crime like murder or rape or anything like that, I don't think it is possible to punish that with a fixed term sentence. In my opinion, it should be handled in this way. The person who committed the crime should be made subject to a penal institution, go to jail, where they are given the opportunity to rehabilitate themselves. But just like we, when it comes to suing somebody for breaking the law, the burden is on the state, on the public, to prove the guilt of the person who is defending himself. After guilt has been established, after a person has been convicted of such a serious crime, the burden of proof falls on them. That's how it should be, in my opinion. The burden of proof should fall on them to prove that they are no longer a risk to society. And until they can do so, to satisfy independent observers, maybe even the victims where possible, then they will not be released, no matter how long it takes. Which will mean that in most cases where somebody has committed really serious crimes, and a lot of people who do that are beyond redemption in any normal circumstances, the chance for rehabilitation should be there, but it should be virtually zero. The next question about drug laws actually reminds me of something I forgot to address when I was talking about abortion. You see, we can all agree that it is regrettable that women would forget to use contraception and then have to go for an abortion in order to get the problem resolved. But the real problem here is a lack of education. Sex and what might happen if you engage in sex should be something that's freely discussed in schools, in education and in public, so people understand what happens, what might happen when you engage in sexual activity, so that people know what options are available to prevent pregnancies in the first place, so that the whole issue of abortion doesn't even arise. Exceptional circumstances, of course, accepted, but that would resolve an awful lot of the abortion issues. The better people are educated, the less of a problem it becomes. An awful lot of the abortion problem that Christians, for example, fundamentalist Christians, rail against, are in fact caused by the fact that they never ever discuss sexuality with children, who then grow up ignorant, engage in those practices anyway, and then of course end up pregnant. Just a thought. But now, drug laws. And this is why that reminded me of this. Drugs are bad. Okay? We all know that. But how is prohibition against taking drugs going to resolve that issue? As a youngster, I knew about drugs. I knew that heroin was bad. I knew that cocaine, crack and all those things were bad things for you because people said they were. I had no idea what they were, how they affected you, and, if the circumstances had been bad enough, who knows, I might have even found myself tempted at some stage to try it out. Who knows? Because I was left very ignorant about such issues. But one thing that opened my eyes was a movie that was out when I was young. A movie called, it was a German movie, Christiane F. Wir Kinder vom Bahnhof Zoo. And that painted an uncompromising picture of what it was like to be a heroin addict. The information was shoved in your face. You could see for yourself what being addicted to heroin amounted to. That opened my eyes as to why I should never touch the stuff with a barge pole. Not people's pious insistence that I should just say no. The information about what drugs do to you should again be readily available. The information should be out there. It should be discussed openly. It should be discussed with children when they're at an age where they can understand what the hell you're talking about. You shouldn't just say, don't touch it, and if you do, you'll be in trouble, because all that will happen then is it'll make it more interesting for those people who are easily tempted in those ways. Prohibition is something that has been shown over and over again to not work. The war on drugs, of course, is even more of a joke, because first of all, it is something that cannot be won. But secondly, it actually plays into the hands of those people who need to be tackled. The drugs barons, the criminals. They are the ones that profit from it. They are the ones that profit from the fact that all this stuff has to go underground and therefore the prices go through the roof. And who ends up suffering as a result? The poor schmucks who fell for the bullshit and who now find themselves addicted with no hope of redemption. So the war on drugs is a joke. Prohibiting drug taking is ridiculous. And if you want people to take less drugs, then start educating rather than prohibiting. Just a thought. The next one I can be very short about. Gay rights. The term itself is ridiculous. Gays are people just like everybody else. Homosexuality is perfectly normal, and they should therefore have the same rights as everybody else. This is something that I've addressed before in many other videos. This whole idea about gay marriage. The root cause of the problem there, I think, is that the word marriage carries all this religious baggage. Yes, I hear what religious people are saying. They say, why not create something like a civil union that will give gay people certain rights, but keep marriage holy as a union between man and a woman? I totally agree. In actual fact, this is what I think should happen. The word marriage marriage, should be removed completely from any statute books. It should have no place whatsoever in civil law. Instead, anybody who is currently in a marriage should have that converted into something called a civil union, that other than the label that's stuck on it has exactly the same rights as what marriage has right now. And then, when the term has become civil union and the term marriage has been taken out of legislation altogether, then extend civil union to include all partnerships, even those between people of the same sex. And marriage is something that the religious can take for themselves to do it as they please, and it no longer is our problem. Gay rights, of course there should be gay rights. The gays, the blacks, the whatever, all human beings should enjoy the same basic rights. No discussion. And finally, the economy. Oh Jesus, the economy. Now that is a topic about which I can say preciously little, to be perfectly honest. I am fairly liberal-minded, and I am by and large a proponent of free market economies. Although, on the other hand, I do accept and support the idea that those in society who are the weakest should be supported. There should be legislation against exploitation, against, companies creating monopolies and, dictating the market rather than being dictated by the market, and so on and so forth. But, in all fairness, I am completely ignorant about these topics. I know very little about these topics. I don't know how feasible such things are, and I think I should leave discussing such things to those people who have at least got something of a clue as to what they're talking about. So there you have it. That's my 5 topics, and I hope that clarified a little bit to you as to who I am and where I'm coming from and why I talk about certain things in certain ways. Thank you for listening, and reboot your mind.